Hey guys, welcome back to LS Vintage Design. I'm Lisa. Today is video 1 in our series, How to Open a Booth in an Antique Mall. And I am starting this from the very first step, and I'll walk you all the way through, and then we'll do updates after you get into a booth, get it set up. I mean, we are walking through every possible scenario, question you may have, and if I don't cover something, you're always free to leave a comment down below. So where do you start when you want to open an antique booth? Some of you may say at an antique mall. That's not quite right, but the camera's crooked. The very first place you start is, what are you going to put into a booth? And you may say, oh, well, I'll just put some of this, some of... No. That's where a lot of people, I think, fail at antique booths, because you think you can just throw stuff in and it's going to sell, but that's not the case. And antique malls won't let you do that. What you really have to do is think about who you are in an antique booth. How would you translate into this antique booth? Because that's where your passion's going to be, and that's where it's going to show when you set it up, when you find items for your booth, when you advertise your booth. All of that is going to show up if you put things that are you, that you have a passion about into your booth. So, of course, my booth is mid-century modern, 30s, 40s, 60s, 70s, because that's who I am. I am like all those decades rolled into one. So it works. I'm also Legos in my booth because in memory of my husband. And I have a passion for those. But they're vintage Legos. They're like from the 90s and 80s. I have some 2000 Starbucks cups. But you think about it, it's 2025. So now 2000 is vintage. I love Starbucks. So I put myself into this booth. So that's your first step. Think about who you are in terms of a booth. The second step is to find the right antique mall. And you might be like, well, I'll just go to this one near my house. Or, you know, there's one over here that I'll go to, whatever. Okay, there's a lot of things that go into picking an antique mall. First and foremost, before you pick an antique mall, go to the antique malls where you live or however far you want to drive. But keep in mind, you're going to have to go however many times, so you want to make sure the drive isn't too much or you don't get too aggravated by it. So drive in the busiest times, because that might be when you end up having to go. If you pick a booth far from your home, you might have to go during a rush hour, during an event or something. So go during those times. Okay, so first go to all the antique malls where you think you might want a booth and just walk through them. Look at what's there. Go through it different times, 2 or 3 times over a month. What have you noticed isn't there? What's selling that you notice? Ask, what is there a lot of? Maybe there's too much, and if you brought the same thing in, it wouldn't sell. Okay, so step 1 is figuring out who you are in a booth. Step 2 is visiting all the antique malls by you and figuring out if it's a good fit for you. And under that, you have A, B, C, and D. A is just walk around, see what's there. B, once you've walked around several times, gone several different times of the week, times of day, all of that. You see what the crowds are like. You see the items. You see, maybe have determined what kind of sells, what doesn't sell, all of that. Then talk to a manager, assistant manager, or somebody that works there and ask them, hey, do you have any booths available? Any booths coming available? And what do they look for? What are they looking for in a booth? Because a lot of times they'll tell you, and a lot of times antique malls have waits, okay? But talk to somebody that works there. From that conversation, you're going to find out, one, do they have any availability? Two, they're going to ask you, what do you sell? And you can't say, well, this and that. They want to know. And the reason they want to know, a lot of times, is booths try not to have too much of one thing. Like our booth that I'm in, Plano Antique Mall, has a cap on clothes, on Pokemon, and on Hot Wheels. There's just too much. They're not going to, it's too much. They might have a cap on what you can't sell. Then they'll tell you, if you have something that they may want, they may say, oh, well, with the next available booth, we can get you in. They may say they have a wait time up to a year. They may tell you, they'll tell you their policies. They have a work period required. Plano Antique Mall requires you to work 5 hours a month or pay $15. They may tell you that they keep a percentage of sales. Plano Antique Mall keeps 8%. So they're going to tell you their policies, what they're looking for, what they don't want any more of. They're going to have information that is important to you. So then you go home, and you can go ahead and get on waiting list if you want, but you go home and you write all this down for each antique mall that you've been to. You write all this information down. Add in your drive time, add in traffic, add in what you were planning on selling. Does it fit within A, B, C, D, E, F, however many malls you go to? Okay, those are all very important things. Also, keep in mind, if you have items that sell, you're going to have to keep your booth restocked. So, what is your supply chain? Do you have a lot around your home stored in storage somewhere? Or are you starting from scratch and you're just going to be adding as you go? Well, booths that look filled out sell more. People have more confidence that they're going to be there longer in the products they're offering. So you want your booth to be filled out. Okay, so you have to think about your supply chain. Okay. So you take all that knowledge that you gained from your visits, from your driving, from your visiting, talking with all these people, from yourself, thinking about what you're going to sell, where you're going to get it from, your income, your budget. Don't go into this without a budget. Does your city require a business license, a sales tax license? Yes, the antique mall takes out sales tax and pays that. But what if you're selling stuff and you put it on Marketplace and you sell off outside of the antique mall? What if you're going to do multiple antique malls? So all of that information is imperative to making you successful. And this is just step 1AA in the process. It's a lot. It's a lot. I have a downloadable sheet on my website. The website's down below. It's free. You can go over there and download it. And it gives you all of the stuff, all of what we discussed today in a worksheet format. Okay? All right, guys. This series will be back on next Monday, January 13th. Trying to think what today was. January 13th, I'll be back with Starting an Antique Booth, episode 2. And then we'll talk about, you've got a booth, we'll talk about items, pricing, inventory, and I'll have some more downloads for you then too. All right, guys, I'll see you next week.